Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Monday, and it's September 22nd. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and you can see another new contract high today. My guess is we're headed to this upper line. We're probably going to get well outside this oversold line if that happens. Um, well, I say well outside. It's going to continue to rise too, so they may converge or something. But my guess is we'll probably push through that line at some point. That happens sometimes, as you can see here. In an attempt to reach that line, we push through. Here we didn't quite get there because we hit the upper trend channel line. So my guess is that's where we're headed. So I see this thing continuing to push higher. We could pull back a day or so or go sideways a little bit before we push on up. But my guess is we're gonna see prices reach this upper trend channel line. That's my guess. Nobody knows for sure, but it looks like we continue to strengthen as we push higher. Really strong bullish day today. The market just kept going higher, but there weren't very many trades at all. It's a shame when you get a really nice strong trend like this, and you just don't get a lot of setups. So if you struggle to find setups today, um, no surprise. Let's flip over there and we can talk about it when we get to that chart. But let's flip over to the 2000 tick chart and we'll take a look at it. But you can see the chart here. We really had three pushes up. We had this first trend and then a correction, and then we had another trend here, a correction, and then one more smaller trend before we went sideways and then backed off a little bit. But you can see that the market just kind of took off here. You don't get much opportunity to enter, unfortunately. And what is there? One, two, three red or blue trades and two green ones, and that's it. I just didn't see anything else. Now, one thing I will say on these strong trends, um, a lot of times when they're really strong like this, you can enter any good signal bar that comes back to the trend line. Now, you're probably taking a little bit more of a risk, but these are strong trends, and you see that you don't get many once it's trending, you don't get very many corrections. When you do, they're not very strong, and then you'll get a correction like this. Notice you get your break first, and then a move to a new high, and then you get a bigger correction. So until you get that break, you could just about enter. Here was one. Here's one. Here's another one. Of course, you're going long into these highs, but it's a strong trend. Here's another one. Here's another one, and all of them would have worked until it turned down. And let's just look on this down here and see what we got. You got one here. Probably could enter there. This was your first break. So, but even if you entered there, it just keeps going. And so that's what I'm trying to point out is that on these really strong trend days, um, you just about can take every signal bar that comes back to a key entry point. I'd be more careful on the midline because it's considered a minor key entry point, but it's still a key entry point as well. So unless you've bounced off that multiple times, I'd be careful at the midline. But otherwise, there's not many trades today. And really, to trade these kind of trends, to take those kind of entries that I'm pointing out to you, you really need to know what you're doing. You need to be an experienced chart reader, and more than anything, you need to be able to recognize that it is a strong trend. And once you get a break here, you don't know that it's going to go back into another strong trend. And the same thing here. You don't know that it's going back into another strong trend, but it does. And so anyway, it looks like what happens here is this one just kind of folds over into a flatter channel until you get your break and you get moved to a new high, and then it kind of sells off again. So, but let's just go through the trades real quick. 7 o'clock came as we're kind of chopping along this little sideways correction here, and you just got a range really is what you have going on. But you do get a triple test down here with a good signal bar along this support line. So I like entering there early, right out of the gate. There were no high volatility news items today. I think we had a speaker FOMC, but that's medium, so don't worry too much about that. And if you'd enter here, you know, you're probably not going to get a runner unless you, depending on unless you were really aggressive with your runner and gave it a lot of room with your safety stop and didn't move it to break even or break even plus one or whatever. And then you get another second entry here, but that signal bar doesn't qualify. Technically, it's really by the count. Actually, I don't know if that breaks higher there or not. Let me just, before I tell you that, I can't remember if it broke higher. I think it just makes a double top there. A two bar matching high, rather. 1075. Yeah, it does not break higher there. So you get a first entry, and then the second entry did trigger above this bar right here. I'd still treat that like a second entry. So this, even if it did tick a tick higher there, it's not that critical. If you had a good signal bar here, I'd tell you to go long. So, but you don't get that. So you don't really get a setup there, and it just kind of takes off. You get a high or low, but no signal bar is no good. And then you get a second entry here, and I think you could argue that this gives you at least 3 tests of that line. It is just below the midline, so you'd expect it to pull back, but it could touch that midline and turn down again. So I'm not super crazy about it, but you're still expecting a retest of the high on this move here. But the other problem is you got some resistance up here, but I think you got enough room to get out, so I don't think that's really the critical piece. I think the critical piece is where you're entering here. You're nowhere near the EMA or the main key entry point, but this support line here is also a key entry point. So personally, I like that entry, but it could be a little bit dangerous, so I marked it green. And notice after you get the break here, you get 2 legs up and you get a little failed break higher. And you could treat this like a lower high. It's a 2-bar matching high, and this was a little bit higher. So you could treat this like a lower high and go short there. And you would expect it to pull back to at least the EMA and probably the key entry point to test it. And of course, it holds again. You get a first entry there. You get a second entry and a high or low here. But again, the signal bar doesn't qualify, so there's no entry there. You can't go long on this one because it's right into the high. You might say, okay, there's a failed second entry short, but I would, on a breakout here like that, right at the overnight. There's another thing here is this was where there was a gap. This was the close from Friday, and we opened down here at 8:30 this morning. So prices were attempting to fill a gap, and we could turn down from there. So the failed breakout is the better entry than trying to get long up here. So I don't think you want to take a reversal here, even though it works. And it's just a strong move, and you don't get another chance to enter. Now you get a second entry here, but this signal bar doesn't qualify. Now you got a 2-bar matching low, so you could use either one of these if you wanted to enter on that second entry. But it doesn't break above that anyway. But you're not back to the trend line just quite yet, and you still have this trend channel here, trend line coming down, and you don't have a break in new low yet. So notice what happens when you get the break, and again, there's no setup here to go long. And I don't think I'm going to go short. You're not going to go short there. So, but notice how this moves down, close outside, a couple of swings to a new low, and then it reverses. Now you might say, hey, I want to try to pick this low here, but you got to be really careful with it because timing's everything. And if you pick this first one, you got stopped out. But it's too congested. It's too sideways. You got a no-bodied bar, another body, and then another bar right beside it, and another one. That's congestion. Just like that whole thing is congestion. So you want to see it break out of there and pull back and test it first, which it does here. And then you get a high or low, a good signal bar, and a close back inside the range. That's where you go long. Now, if you catch this one, you can ride this thing until you can't. So you don't get a major correction until here. But that's the first break close outside the channel. So that's probably where I would have gotten and stopped out, putting my stop exit, moving it up to 1 tick below that bar. And I probably would have got stopped out there. But that would have been pretty close to the high because you see it ends up going lower. But notice you got two legs down. You got a trend working down, a closeout side plus a first entry. Then you get the second leg down. So a break above that's a second entry. Now I marked this green, but it is, you could argue for it to be blue. Does that close? If you look at that signal bar, does it close in the upper 1/3? It's really close. I would say that's more bullish than negative, but it's not perfect. So I marked it green, but I like that setup. You would hope you get a higher low here, but you don't, and it just takes off again, and there's no other chance to enter. So if you weren't aggressive here, you know, this just takes you right into 230, and there's not really another entry. Unless you go back to what I was talking about and you enter only on any, or actually you enter on any signal bar that comes back to the key entry point that gives you a good signal bar. And this didn't really get confirmed till here, so you could have entered one tick above that, which I don't necessarily recommend that one. Notice it didn't break above it anyway, so it doesn't matter. But because it's in all that congestion, and that's obviously congestion, I wouldn't enter there. It does come back again here. You could enter there. It comes back here. You could have entered. And here's another one. But again, I don't know if you want to enter into all that resistance or not. You would have got burned on that one. I don't know how many ticks that one got. See, it only got 3 ticks, so you'd have got burned on that one. But that's after 230 anyway, so you shouldn't be entering there anyway. So, but any of these that set up prior to that, you just about could have entered on. So, not a great trading day. I mean, obviously, this is a pretty good setup here, fairly easy for most to see, I would think, if you understand our strategy, and that would have given you a really nice move. But you had to sit around and wait on it all morning. So, but if you catch that, you ought to catch a runner, and I would be trying to catch a runner on a day like this, and that would be a fairly nice move, most likely. At the very least, a runner should net you 7 or 8 points there, probably 6 to 8 points, but maybe even more than that. It could have netted you up to, if you just follow the rules I use, 15 points. So not bad. With 5 runners there, you know, you're looking at 65 points on a runner right there. That's the kind of day you like to have. But anyway, there it is. That's about all I can say about today, is that it was a really nice trend day, really nice move. There might even be a secondary. I didn't go back and look at it because really my trend covers it. But there might be a secondary trend right here. Oops. And it looks like it probably, oops, didn't mean to do that. But you can see there's definitely another trend channel there. So you really could have started back here. I like to play the tighter one, so I didn't really play this one. But it's there. I don't think what I just showed you changes anything, even if you played it that way and didn't play the tighter one. So I don't think it makes much difference how you saw it. But if you did see that, it's there. So anyway, there it is. I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Matt with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.